You're listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, along with former England fast bowler Steve Harmison, as always, for another busy show. We'll start with Harry Brook being named England's new white ball captain, taking over from Jos Buttler. We'll talk about if that's the right decision, especially with what's to come over the next 12 months in Test cricket. The Hampshire and England Lions bowler Sonny will join us fresh off the back of his county championship debut, and we'll round up all the other action from round one, or at least the stories that caught our eyes, as Tom Banton makes history for Somerset and Adam Hollyoake begins life at Kent with a win as their new head coach. We'll hear also from Charlotte Edwards after she became the new England head coach. And as always, we'll bring you the final word. Let's start then, as I said, Harmy, with Harry Brook's appointment. It took a while. He was the obvious choice. I know that you have concerns. People will say that, well, he did spend a year being vice captain to Jos, so he was like always next in line. But there are many reasons to have misgivings, aren't there? One of which is he there by default?
A lot of concerns. Is he there by default? I just think, unfortunately, you name a new captain. It's like anything else in like any other sport. We're talking about football managers. There's never a good time to go into a job, especially because the majority of times you go into a job, it's off the back of somebody not doing the job as well as you would like, or the team struggling. So, and that's the case here. I've got no problem with Harry Brook as captain. It's just the timing of it. And that is something I don't think anybody can really control. I don't think Brendan McCullum or Rob Key. I think in an ideal world, yes, they would probably wait until a little bit further down the line. But you've also got to marry up. There's two ways of looking at it. You go, Harry Brook is going to take attention away from 5 test matches against India, 5 test matches against Australia, to be an ODI and T20 captain against, the West Indies, three ODIs against South Africa, and a little bit of T20 in between. But on the other hand, you've got to have stability, and you've got to have what I believe is key in an English summer is a momentum, and the momentum of the one-day series has a knock-on effect to the test series, and then the test series has a knock-on effect to the one-day series at the end of that, and then leads you into a good winter, leads you into, positively into the winter. So I think with all that in the sort of melting pot, I think England had to name somebody, and there was only one name. As much as I would love, in an ideal world, you go down the road of having a part-time captain for the English summer, and then look at somebody like Ben Stokes after the Ashes to, like Owen Morgan said, be a tournament captain. I said it about 4 or 5 weeks ago. In an ideal world, I'd have Ben Stokes as a tournament captain and pick a 15-man squad and pick a captain from that 15-man squad in bilateral series. But you've also got to have a game plan, a stability, a rock at the top. So I think weighing everything up, I think England have probably made the right decision in naming somebody on a permanent basis. It's just unfortunately at the timings that it is, with a Red Bull schedule the way it is, that one of our star players, or one of our players who I think we're going to have to hang our hat on in these 10 important test matches, is going to be distracted a little bit by the white ball leadership job. So, do I think he's the right person for the job? I think what he did against Australia last year was very, very good, and I thought his form, married that as well. I thought he was in decent form with it. Was he the only candidate? Probably, but that's not Harry's fault. I think it's a good appointment. I think it gives them a little bit of direction, and I think it also, with him being so close to Stokes, that differential, the sort of where you different white ball captain to red ball captain, and they're pulling in different directions and they want different things. With McCullum in charge, I think that works, if you know what I mean. So Harry Brook will work under Ben Stokes as a leader in the red ball game. He'll then have his wings clipped and fly his own course during the white ball stuff, and then come back under Ben Stokes in the in the Red Bull stuff against India and against Australia, then all of a sudden, what you'll probably see is then Harry will get his full, his full chance of being England's only captain in possibly 18 months' time, because this is a great chance for Harry Brook to just come in under the radar of Ben Stokes and then take over from Ben Stokes when Ben's body probably will eventually let him down. So it's just timing, that's all for me. But I've got no doubt that Harry Brook could be a very good captain.
What intrigues me, and maybe you can answer this, and it always has intrigued me, is how slow the evolution of captaincy has been compared to other forms of the game. Why is it so hard to look at the position of captain and to redefine it and to say, the captain doesn't have to play every game. There is too much cricket going on. He might be better captaining the white ball team in these bilateral series, in these conditions. Why not? Why is it so hard to pick a captain for a series or for a game from a leadership group, for Harry Brook to be one of three potential captains, and also the off-field duties? We've had a chuckle about Ben Duckett and some of his comments now being called Duckettisms, and Harry's also a man who doesn't necessarily want to spend too much time worrying about picking and choosing his words and being diplomatic. So why can't those why is it? I mean, so much of the game has changed so much, and yet we still, England in particular, in this position where they have to have a captain who does everything and is undroppable. Why?
The answer is I'm not so sure. I think from a captaincy point of view and why you have to have one, I think the identity of the team is so important, and I think that was lost under Joss a little bit. And I don't think that was Joss's fault. There was a transition of coach. There was a different following Morgan was a hell of a job. I mean, following Owen was, that was a hell of a job. That's like going in after Wenger. That's going in after Ferguson. That's a hell of a job to then stamp your authority and put your own identity on it. Good luck, Joss Butler, with that one. But I think we've lost a little bit of identity in white ball cricket and where we wanted to be, what sort of team we wanted to have. The balance of the side was a little bit challenging at times from a selection point of view when you lost Ben Stokes and then you lost Moeen Ali, because all of a sudden now you've got bowlers who can't bat and you've got batters who can't bowl, and that is just two people having that quality can completely derail your game plan or what the sort of balance of your side looks like, or instead of being very sort of gung ho at the top, you've got to be going, hold on, we've got 15 overs at the end with Jamie Overton coming in at number 7. These are relevant problems. So I think why we need a captain to give us his identity. The team has to look at the way he wants to play. And I think because of that, I think we had to name him. So I agree. Off-field stuff is, as we've joked, and we both love Ben Duckett, and I think he's brilliant. He's one of my favourite cricketers in England's team. And when he comes into the press, I love that as well, because I've always been somebody who loves people who are different. And when you get asked a stupid question, sometimes it's quite good to give a stupid answer just because of like, why would you ask something like that? So, and I think Harry's the same, but I think he might have to be handheld a little bit on that side, because sometimes playing them cards doesn't always work for you. The dumb insolence, the way you deal with the media, unfortunately, is important, and it shouldn't be, but it is in English cricket, especially as the England captain. And I think going through time, I think that's something that the relationship he'll have to have a good one with the media, because what comes with the England captaincy comes with different pressures, and it comes with different scrutiny. And you are the man that is the face for that white ball team, and it's not easy. It's not easy. You ask the likes of Michael Vaughan, Nasser Hussain, and everybody that came with it who weren't comfortable in the white ball side. Nasser wasn't the first pick in the white ball side when he was captain. Great Michael Vaughan was never, we would say he wasn't the the first pick on the team sheet when he was white ball captain. It's a bit different for Harry, because Harry probably will be one of the first names on the team sheet, whether he was captain or not. But off the field stuff, he's going to have to deal with that in his own way. But I think he's got to be a little bit cautious and careful going into it, because we have a great way, unfortunately, in this country of knocking people when they're on, on their sort of their top pedestal. And whether that's right or wrong doesn't matter. That's what happens, and that's what Harry's going to have to deal with. So he's going to need help around him, i.e. the people who are close to him, i.e. agency-wise, and family and friends, as well as Rob Key, Luke Wright, and Brendan McCullum. Take a lot of pressure off from that side, especially in the first 6 to 9 months of his tenureship as captain, because he's got the Red Bull stuff, the important Red Bull stuff to go with it as well.
Just finally, of course, Harry missed a test tour of India after the bereavement that he suffered when his grandmother passed away. And someone said to me that they wondered whether that was a weakness in his character and personality. And I said, I think quite the opposite. I think that's a strength. I think, and if he, in order to be at his best in the test format, and I think he'll prioritize that, won't he? And I think he'll be expected to prioritize that. And if he says to Rob Key or Brendan McCullum, I need a break, I think I and the team will be better off if I don't play these one-dayers coming up or these T20s coming up. I think that should be a tick, shouldn't it, rather than a cross?
Absolutely, absolutely. The human element of any sportsman, the humbleness, if they're as grounded as they are, the human element is what makes them great. And that, for me, Harry's got that. I've spent a little bit of time with him. He's got that. His feet are firmly on the ground. He's very respectful for the people who aren't in the game, i.e. the people around the support staff, as well as the general public who basically pay their wages. He's a wonderful lad, and he's somebody who I hope he does well. And the human element to Harry is something that I think will stand him in good stead. He turned the IPL down. That's a lot of money. He didn't turn the IPL down because he didn't get enough money. He turned the IPL down because from a human side of it, it was like, this is the last thing I need at this moment in time. And if he has that in mind going forward, and he misses a couple of one-day games or he has to miss a test match, he's realistic. And that's the thing I like about Harry Brook. He speaks very simple. And when he goes about his job, it's in a very, very simple way. His batting technique is very, very simple. There's not a lot of moving parts. There's not a lot can go wrong. But what he is he's very, very, there's a realism about Harry Brook, which I really, really enjoy. And I think because of that, he's been brought up the right way. And I think he appreciates what he's got. And I think that will stand him in good stead going forward, because like I said before, he sees the game quite simple and sees the game quite clearly. And he's a typical Yorkshireman. He's hard-faced, and he'll not back down to nobody when it comes to sort of people having a go at him about not going to the IPL or missing this tour or not going on that tour. He just believes he's the best player. He tries to be the best player he can be, and England need him because he's one of our very best. So I wish him well. I really do hope he has a good start. And when it comes to the difficult times from a schedule and a diary point of view of red ball and white ball, that the pressure's taken off him and somebody makes that decision for him to make sure that he has the best work-life balance, which is a lot of rest and making sure that he's in the best place mentally and physically to perform for England, whether that's captain of the white ball team or batting number 5 in the red ball team, because he's probably he's going to be one of our best players for the next 10 years.
You're listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, along with former England fast bowler Steve Harmison. Next up in part 2, we'll look back at the opening round of the County Championship, and what an opening round it was. You're listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, alongside Double Ashes winner Steve Harmison. And a reminder, you can now watch us on YouTube as well. If you're not doing that already, just head over to the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel and subscribe. Harmy, it was an absolutely magnificent first round of Championship cricket in Division 1 and Division 2. There are so many stories. A very good friend of mine went to Lords one day and Chelmsford the next, and he sent me photographs. And I just want to say right up front, he wasn't the only one. There were lots of people on Twitter as well posting photographs of large crowds and
Mm.
comments like, who says people don't want to watch county championship cricket? There were crowds everywhere. I mean, we were blessed with some, well, dry weather and quite warm weather in some places. But Tom Banton is obviously the headline story. Just an extraordinary innings in an extraordinary match. Worcestershire drawing. Tom Banton made 371. Somerset had a lead of over 500, and Worcestershire batted 200 overs in the fourth innings to save the game. Oh, I mean, where do you start?
Well, Banton's innings was, I mean, that's you got to start with that and stand alone with that because Tom's come off the back of a couple of difficult years after getting into the England team early in his career, and then we seen him in India. And I thought in difficult circumstances, I thought he performed really well when he came in. Didn't get the massive score, but he kept getting in and getting a score. And then that, I'm sure, being around the England team, like Ollie Robinson said, was it last week? I think we had Ollie Robinson on. Being in that environment gave him a huge amount of confidence to kick on with his career. And I think Tom Banton's come back from the difficulties of England white ball stuff, carrying drinks, but being back in the practicing environment of the big stage, and thought, you know what, I want a bit of that. And what you have to do is you have to get off to a good start in the championship, because it can be brutal them first 7 games in 8 weeks. And what a start, 371. Wow. I mean, I was watching some of it and I kept flicking on it. I probably watched more of the county championship this week. And I was in Disneyland Paris. I mean, I was probably watched more this week than I've probably ever watched, because normally I play golf in the morning and then I'll watch a little bit of the after lunch or the tea time session. If I'm watching the scores and I see anybody that's doing all right, or if there's a young bowler, especially if a young bowler's bowling, I'll flick over and I watched, we're going to speak to Sonny Baker, but I went and flicked over and watched a little bit of his bowling because I knew he was going to bowl. And then I watched the end of the game with Josh Tongue when he bowled Durham out, but I couldn't take my eyes off Tom Banton. I'm sitting in a hotel room in Paris in the middle of the afternoon, and he just kept belting it to all parts. And I mean, he was controlled. It wasn't a slugfest. It was controlled batting against a decent bowling attack. Worcester's bowling attack's not the strongest. But hey, what an innings. 400 balls, 371. It was hats off. I was desperate for him to go and get at least 400. I think his innings deserved to get to 400. And then you thought that would be enough. 200. I think I wrote it down. Somerset 670 for 7 off 149.4 overs, and Worcester 639 for 19 in 245 overs. I mean, what a game of cricket! And to finish on a draw. I mean, you say where do you start, but you carry on. Brett D'Oliveira. I'm not sure who the umpire was, but did you see the dismissal of D'Oliveira when Archie Vaughan got him out? And Brett D'Oliveira's shoulder arms, and he's sort of kicked it away from outside off stump. That pitch must have been spinning miles, because that had a long way to go. I know it was no shot played, so you're not outside the line. That ball had a long way to go to hit the stumps, and I just wondered if the umpire was thinking, in about an hour and a half's time, that M6, M5, M6 is going to be very, very congested. It's time to go. And he didn't count for the fact that Matty Waite would bat 319 balls for 87. Good. I spent a little bit of time with Matty in Yorkshire when Goffey first went in. And that kid, he's got a lot of good characteristics for first-class cricket. He bats a bit, he bowls a bit, and he's got a solid character. He wants to be in the game all the time. And to get 87 off 319 balls to save the game, I think it was something like 480 balls, numbers 8, 9, 10, and 11 batted to save the game. Fair play, hats off to Worcester. I know they only got, 9 points? I know they only got 9 points for it, but what a game of cricket that was.
The umpires were Paul Pollard and Martin Saggers. And big commendation as well to Jack Leach and Archie Vaughan, who you
Yeah.
mentioned, who bowled 65 and 50 overs respectively. Just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. All right, let's move on quickly then. Do you know what? I mean, brilliant stuff from Nottinghamshire. I mean, there were
Yeah.
wonderful wins as well in Division Two for Derbyshire. We're always pleased to see them do well, and Leicestershire as well, and Kent. Kent
Mm.
had a very, very impressive win. But I couldn't help my eye being drawn to Colin Ackerman scoring 100 in both innings for Durham as they went down to Nottinghamshire. I mean, there was a real example of the team being beaten, contributing massively to the entertainment value and the pace of the game. I mean, Durham have lost, but gee whiz, it takes two to put a decent dance together.
It does, and it was another one. I watched the end of that. Josh Turnbull really well. I was really impressed by I think his stamina towards the end of the day, which was to get the job done in the wickets. And he got 5 for 66. He bowled 21 overs. I mean, over the course of the week, he bowled 40 overs for somebody who has had so many injury problems. First week of the season, yeah, hats off. And he won the game for Nottingham. I think that's the beauty about having your quick bowler. Durham were a little bit depleted, didn't have Bedingham, didn't have the other overseas. Cast was missing. But Ackerman did a sterling job at making sure that both teams were in the game. I think another 100 runs from Durham. That would have been not a different contest because I think the pitch was a decent pitch. But fair play. I look at Notts at the start of the season and thinking, are their bowlers going to be durable to sustain a challenge? Are they going to get enough runs? I think they were going to get enough runs. It was just, can they keep 4 fast bowlers on a pitch for a prolonged period of time to sustain a challenge? We know the injuries of Pennington. Ollie Stone's now out for 14 weeks. Josh Tongue plays one and misses 5 or 6. Were they going to be durable enough from a ball? And that will be their challenge going forward. But if they get their best team out, they've got a chance of being in the top half and challenging. Because I think Surrey are going to win a championship, and I know that they had a draw. Surrey will win the championship, but there's 5 teams below that could finish anywhere between obviously second and sixth, who could potentially push Surrey if they got on a foot race towards the end. And Notts, if they get their bowlers right, they can win games on flat pitches. And we've just seen there 579. The thing that I look at this week, man, I mean, there's a lot of talk about first-class cricket, and I know we've got another show that talks about county cricket, and we don't want to sort of take too much away from that. But there's all the questions about playing cricket in April. It's freezing cold. Pitches do a bit. How many times have we seen, and we sat here now for 3 or 4 years, that the first game of the season, right, is always the best game from a numbers point of view? There's 400 scored, 500 scored. There's always been. Because why? Because the ground staff have been given basically 6 months to prepare one pitch to get the first game out the way. And it normally is the best pitch. So for me, if you give the ground staff a chance from a schedule point of view to prepare a pitch, then all of a sudden you'll get a good one. And that's why when you talk about scheduling, these numbers tells you, yes, it might be cold, but the pitches are decent. You could play the 50 over competition at this point of the year and still have a very, very competitive competition without the ball zipping about everywhere and 200 being a good score. Look at the numbers in that first division. Sussex got over 500. Somerset got 600. Worcester got 500 nearly. Notts got over 500. I mean, Essex got 500. Big scores in that first division on good surfaces, and that for me is a tick in the box for the ground staff as well.
Okay, shout out as well for Lewis Rees, who took 10 for in the game for Derbyshire to spearhead their victory. And also, a lovely story for me, South African bowler Keith Dudgeon, signed by Kent. There are many cricketers around the world who don't push themselves. They're understated, modest. In South Africa, there are many. I mean, South African first-class cricket is not a meritocracy, strictly speaking. So there are many who just think that they're better off keeping their mouth shut, keeping their head below the parapet, taking their paycheck, and just being happy to be able to put some fuel in their 15-year-old Toyota Corolla. And one of those is a chap called Keith Dudgeon, who Joe Root spotted when he was playing for the Pile Royals. He passed on the word. He thought, hang on a minute, this is not a journeyman.
Mm.
He's like, Keith, you don't know how good you are. He's passed on the word to Zach Crawley. Zach Crawley's passed it on to, well, Adam Hollyoak or maybe whoever was before him. Dudgeon was supposed to sign last year, but signed this year. And what did he take? 7 for 36.
Yeah, you got you got one for in the first innings, one for 30, and then 7 for 36 off 10.
But he's not the only one, is he? He's not the first cricketer to be champion, to have their talent spotted. And sometimes they really don't realise how good they are. It takes someone like Joe Root to come along. Joe Root comes along and says, "You're really good. Do you know that?" It's like suddenly you become really good.
Yeah, you might feel 10 foot tall if one of the greatest cricketers of all time with the bat says to you as a bowler, "You're not bad." I mean, it's a nice story. It's a good story. There's plenty of the South African born with a way of getting into English cricket through different sort of passport routes. We've seen many who have contributed and been very good for the English game, and it just looks as though Kent have got a bowler who can take wickets, and that's something in the second division now. If you've got a bowler that can spearhead your attack for 10 or 12 games, you might have a chance of getting out of the second division into the first division. I'm pleased for Adam Hollyoak. I looked at I didn't see much of the games. I didn't see really any of that game. But when you look at it, if you get 230 if you get 230 in the first innings and win by 145, you've got bowlers who can bowl well. And unfortunately for Darren Lehman, who we had on a couple of weeks ago, it didn't start very well at Northampton. 143 and 114 when a player at each innings gets 60 tells you that your whole batting unit will probably need a good couple of net sessions going into the next round of the championship games. But good on Adam Hollyoak. It's a good start for Smokey, and the belief he gives teams, just by being in a room is massive. And I think that effect has had a huge effect over the course of the last probably 6 weeks leading into this first game.
And finally, I can't help thinking that Surrey will benefit from chasing all that leather in the first game at Chelmsford. I just think that Essex have given the champions a little bit of a slap there, and I think they might benefit from the work and the toil.
Yeah, benefit from the overs and the mileage and the legs. They've got a big pool of players, so I'm sure come next round of championship when they play Hampshire, it's a big game that playing Hampshire at the Oval though. The majority of their attack will change. I'm sure Kemal will play, and Jordan Clark will play, but I think the other bowlers will change. I just wonder and worry that Surrey with a strike bowler. Where's their strike bowler on a flat pitch? They'll get a load of runs, but Matt Fisher, good bowler, 80 miles an hour. They've got bowlers who can bowl. Kemal Roach now, fantastic performer, probably in and around that sort of 80, 82 mile an hour. Surrey have got a lot of things in their favour, but their out and out fast bowler or mystery spinner is something I think bats might be looking at and thinking, if we get on a flat one, we've not been able to bowl. We've not been able to bowl Surrey out, Essex out. We've only took 6 wickets in 147 overs. Dan Lawrence got 3 of them, so that might be something that bats will be looking going forward, thinking we might need a little bit of juice in these wickets to help our bowlers, especially at the Oval, which would suit our attack.
Dan Worrell was scheduled to play, actually, and he was pulled out on the morning of the game, which is interesting. So he'll be fit and raring to go, we assume, unless there was a more serious injury. But overall, brilliant first round of the championship, and more to come. Don't forget, as Harmy mentioned, for a full in-depth review of the week's county championship action, you can listen to Following On County Cricketer every week, with the show available as a podcast on the Following On feed or on the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel, and it features Harmy. You're listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, along with 2-time county championship winner Steve Harmison. Next up, we'll be joined by England Lions and Hampshire bowler Sonny Baker to reflect on his championship game. You're listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, along with former England fast bowler Steve Harmison. And if you've missed any of the show and you want to catch up, you know what to do. Download the podcast from the Following On feed, now available via the free talkSPORT app or wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, let's now hear from Hampshire and England Lions fast bowler Sonny Baker. He dismissed Johnny Bairstow twice in his county championship debut this week as Hampshire beat Yorkshire by 5 wickets, and he's been reflecting on a memorable few months with our producer, talkSPORT's Scott Taylor.
Sonny, congratulations, championship debut. Can you just sum up your performance?
Yeah, well, obviously really pleased. My first wicket being Johnny Bairstow is obviously massive. Not quite how I wanted to get him, but I'll take it nonetheless. I think he said to someone who's on his way down, he's like, not sure I'd getting caught third man on my radar. And yeah, that wasn't exactly a deliberate plan either, but as I said, I'll take it. And yeah, good start with a win. Really pleased. And
you made up for it with the dismissal in the second innings, so what a delivery that was.
That was a bit better for sure, yeah.
And just looking back on your sort of winter as a whole, it's been quite surreal, I imagine, for you, with playing in the Global Super League, then with the Lions, now a county championship debut. Yeah, just sum up the last 6 months for you.
Yeah, well, it's been fantastic. Obviously, Guyana was a really good opportunity to meet some of the lads and, well, not meet, but spend a bit more time with them. You know, got an opportunity to obviously play and try and impress some of the older guys, which is obviously massive, trying to make a good impression on the senior players. Then thereafter, the Lions was just fantastic. Really enjoyed spending a bit of time around Fred, and all of the other coaching staff were awesome, like killers. You know, continue to work with me throughout this, so it's been really cool. And then obviously back working with Pop, so that's doesn't get much better than that. It's been great.
And what was it like working alongside Fred with the Lions? Because I imagine you would have been too young for 05 to see it live. So then,
oh mate, I've got all the videos, I've got all the DVDs.
So then to see a global superstar at that time, you're now working alongside him, must have been pretty cool.
Yeah, it was crazy. As I said, the way I learnt the fielding positions was watching the 05 Ashes videos on DVD, which was great. So yeah, I mean, it is pretty surreal. I think a lot of the lads are fairly shell-shocked when they first meet him. But yeah, very down-to-earth guy, and obviously massive personality and character also. But I think probably doesn't get enough credit for the level of diligence that he has in the planning. So, for example, the Abu Dhabi pre-season camp that we just did was phenomenally well put together, and was just fantastic preparation for the season. Really, really enjoyed it.
Because everyone sees the name Andrew Flintoff, but what is it about the coach Andrew Flintoff that makes him so good?
Well, as I said, very, very good people skills as well, which is massive. Like, knows when the right time to come and speak to you about certain things is, how to deliver certain messages, and what timing is for that as well. So, and then similarly with the planning point of view. But I think his main thing is just passion for it. Like, he loves it, which is just amazing. And you know, I'd probably fall in that category as well, of really enthusiastic. So. Yeah, it's great to have that from your coach as well, because it makes you feel backed, which is, you know, probably the number one thing, I think.
And I know you're an ambitious guy just by speaking to you over the last couple of minutes, but how do you find that balance between being ambitious, want to play Lions, want to play England, but enjoy this? You know, you made your debut in the county championship. It's a good achievement for you.
Yeah, oh, massive. I mean, of course, like, you know, as I said, I don't make any apologies for being ambitious. It's just, you know, the thing that I've got to worry about is the right now. It's so easy to get ahead of yourself and think, oh, what if, but, you know, I'll leave that for everyone else to do. It's none of my business, really, to be honest. As I said, things later on down the line, it's not up to me. It's not my decision. I'm not a selector. So, you know, it's, as I said, I'm just trying to worry about the right now. And first thing for me was championship debut. Fantastic. That's got through unscathed, you know, body's okay still. Then next first block of championship games, and then thereafter got T20s coming up after that, so then block of T20s, and then after that got the 100 coming up, obviously been retained by Manchester. So it's just trying to take it blocks at a time and think about the right now rather than worrying about all the future stuff. And you know, as I said, that's none of my business, to be honest. I'll just worry about this bit.
But with that in mind, I'm going to ask you a little bit about the future. This block of Champo games, has there been any discussions of, you're going to play 5 games, 6 games. Has there been any sort of discussions between ECB and Hampshire over yourself?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the main premise of a development contract, is that they can monitor what you do and how much you do. So, for example, I mean, Brownie's been looking after me in terms of my overs. So then when I do need to put the foot down and really just go for it, let it rip, I'm in a position to do that because my body feels fresh, and then that both benefits the team and myself also from a longevity standpoint and a season standpoint as well. So I think there will be ongoing discussions, pop and killer chat all the time. Similarly, Fred's involved in those conversations, and I think the approach is very much collaborative.
Looking ahead to next week then, Surrey at the Oval, how much are you relishing that? Because you look at their top 6, it's basically an international side, isn't it? So a good chance for you to test your skills against some of the very best.
Absolutely right, on a pitch with pace and bounce. No complaints my end, for sure. Looking forward to it. Be a good joust, I think.
And where did the want for fast bowling come from your point of view? Was it someone growing up? I know we spoke about 05 Ashes, but was it that and thought, oh, this is pretty cool?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I've always wanted to bowl fast.
Yeah.
I just find it way more exciting. Like Mitch Johnson's Ashes. I know as an English guy saying that's pretty tough, but he, that series where he just, killed the games, and then the whole series just through pace, bounce, aggression. Like, who wouldn't want to be that guy, being man of the series for that? You know what I mean? That's a massive win. Guys like Dale Steyn, pitch isn't offering that much, and then steps up the gears and can really be a point of difference. And who wouldn't want to aspire to be that guy?
And also, how do you find that balance between workload and also fast bowling? Because you're still only young. You made your county championship debut, as we discussed.
Today.
So in terms of like building up a workload, but also wanting to manage, because I worked with Steve Harmison, who's always been of the opinion of fast bowlers only get better by bowling overs. They don't get better by being managed. Because you see like Mark Wood breaking down because he's been managed. That's his opinion. So how do you find that balance between wanting to improve and get overs in your belt, but also looking after yourself?
Yeah, it's obviously that, if that's the $1 million question, isn't it? Well, probably more than $1 million, to be honest. There'd be a fair bit of money in that question if you could answer it fully correctly. And I don't think any one person has the be-all, end-all answer. And to be honest, I think it'd probably be a bit of both in terms of balance. Yes, you want to get enough chronic volume in over a long period of time. Like, the reason Abbo can bowl overs and overs and overs is because he's done it. And one of the things he and AD say is, like, a baboon doesn't learn to climb a mountain by picking up a rock and bench pressing it, does it? It climbs up the mountain, you know what I mean? It follows its mum. That's how it works. So similarly to bowling, if you want to get better at bowling, bowl the cricket ball. So I am well aware of that, and that's very much a philosophy that we hold as a club. But at the same time, you also have to manage your volume so you can get through the season, because it's all very well saying you need to bowl loads of overs, but if I bowl 50 overs in the first 2 games and then break down after 2 games, my net load over the whole season is 100 overs. So that's pointless. Rather than gradually building it up to a point where you've got enough of a backing, got through 2 or 3 games where you've bowled a lot of overs, and then thereafter it's like, sweet, we can take the guardrails off, so to speak, and let you send it.
And just finally, does it give you hope then that England have gone a specific way with how they want their bowling unit, looking ahead to Australia? The fact that Josh Hull made a debut in the summer, no one would have said that at the start of last season, that Josh Hull would be a Test cricketer by the end of the year. So does that give you sort of renewed hope? Well,
I mean, it's a good time to be young quick, isn't it? For sure. But as I said, to be honest, from a selection point of view, none of my business. I just got to worry about the here and now. I know that sounds like me dodging the question, and I probably am, to be fair. But I've also said, I'm an ambitious guy, and really, really would love to achieve those things. That's a lifelong dream, isn't it? Like playing for England, of course it is. But as I said, I've just got to worry about the now. Let everyone else worry about that sort of stuff.
Hampshire fast bowler, the 22-year-old Sonny Baker, talking to Scott Taylor. Harmy, I just got so much enjoyment listening to that. I mean, refreshing, enthusiastic, down to earth, humorous, and may I just say that, and if you didn't know it already, a baboon doesn't learn to climb a mountain by bench pressing a rock.
Yeah. I mean, what a character. I mean, if he does go into, play on going in England dressing room, which I don't see why not. Watched quite a bit of him this week. I don't see why not. I enjoyed what I seen. It was probably Sonny Baker or John Turner that you were going to see this week, obviously with Mohamed Abbas moving on to pastures new. But I really enjoyed watching him bowl. And if he does go in that England dressing room, I think he'll hold his own. There's some characters in that dressing room. And when you go into a big, powerful dressing room, you could get gobbled up a little bit by sitting in the corner and just letting everything go by. I think young Baker might be all right. I think he might be all right. I think there's a character in there. So that, from a personal point of view, is brilliant. I thought his bowling this week was fantastic. In a game which, wasn't the most high scoring game. So he didn't bowl the volume of overs that you look to as a selector. If I was selecting and I was looking at somebody like Sonny Baker, I'd be looking at, what's he like when he comes up against, if you look at the Yorkshire side, the likes of Milan and Lyth and Bairstow, international cricketers or seasoned campaigners, how he bowls to them, how he tries to work them out. Where's his second spell out? Where's his third spell out? And if he has to bowl between 5:30 and 6:30, what's he like when it comes to sort of that? So when it comes to ticking boxes, he ticked all of them. He really did. And then I watched him, he got Bairstow out twice. He bowled him.
Caught third man.
He got him caught third man, but he's a quick bowler. And I know that for a fact. Third man is a catching position now. Ajit Agarkar, 2002, Steve Harmison's first test wicket, caught Mark Butcher, bowled Harmison. And Butch fielded at second slip for the majority of his career. He was at third man. As a quick bowler, a strike bowler, third man and fine leg are in the game if you're aggressive. And it wasn't aggressive. It wasn't a bouncer. Johnny was trying to ramp. It was a short and wide one. But I thought he bowled quite nicely to get Bairstow in a position. And, he didn't give him much. And then all of a sudden, Johnny got a chance to get his hands free. And he just lost control of it, went down to third man. But the delivery in the second innings, the bowls, that's the one I want to look at. When you're bowling a player like Johnny Bairstow with all them test matches, yes, he might be closer to the end than he is to that. That's a tick in the box for me for young bowlers. When they're standing at getting themselves in a position 22 yards away from one of England's best modern day players in the recent past, and you knock them over like that, that will then transform your confidence going into the next game and the next game and the next game. You got what did he got? He got two. I've got it written down here. You got 3 wickets in the match. You got Johnny Bairstow out twice. That for me as a selector, I'm going, yeah, I like that because he rises to the challenge. He's not hiding behind, this is Johnny Bairstow. He's a disruptive player, IPL legend, all this stuff. It's like I want a piece of him. When Johnny comes out, I want a piece of him. He's their best player, so I'm going to knock him over. And I think in the second innings, it was an absolute beaut to get rid of him. So that is another tick in the box for Sonny Baker going forward. Not only is he got an interview, he's got a bright future when it comes to letting go of the ball. And if in the course of the next 6 or 7 weeks, we see him bowl 20 overs in an innings, 25 overs in an innings on a flat one, and he's still going strong, he is a kid I think will play. Maybe he's not play against Zimbabwe, but I've got a funny feeling if England pick a 14-man squad when it comes to Zimbabwe, I thought it might have been Sam Cook. I think it might be this kid. I think Baker might be in the reckoning of England when it comes to that Zimbabwe Test match against in Nottingham at the end of May.
Particular relief as well, I think, for Hampshire to know that they might just be able to not just survive but succeed without the usual 1,000 runs a year from James Vince. So yeah, big start for Hampshire. You're listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, alongside Durham Hall of Famer Steve Harmison. Next up, we'll round up some of the week's other big stories as Charlotte Edwards becomes England's new head coach, and we'll bring you the final word. You're listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, alongside former #1 bowler in the world, Steve Harmison. And a reminder, you can now subscribe to the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel for more exclusive interviews, match reviews, and a whole lot more. Right. Former England captain Charlotte Edwards has replaced John Lewis, as you know. That was last week, as England's new head coach after a disappointing 16-0 defeat in the Ashes series over the winter. Some would say catastrophic 16-0 defeat. She's already won 5 domestic titles as a coach. She's won the WPL, the Women's Premier League, twice as well with the Mumbai Indians women. She's won the 100 with the Southern Brave. And she was by far and away the obvious candidate to take over from John Lewis. So let's hear now from the newly appointed England head coach, Charlotte Edwards. The abysmal Ashes campaign is done and dusted, and she's been outlining her initial aims of what she wants to see when she was speaking to our colleagues at Sky Sports.
What we need to do moving forward is be more honest. I think I'm certainly going to be honest with the players, and I want them to be honest with themselves. And we've got to work really hard. We're hard behind Australia, and we've got to be honest about that. For me now, it's about England players understanding their responsibilities in England cricketers. And I think that's going to be such an important part of my role. We've got a lot of young players who've grown up in not a professional environment. And so I think, setting those professional standards is going to be really important. So I think, and in terms of, the fitness side of things, I'm with the team next week. I'll judge their fitness standards then, but they will be made more accountable for fitness. I can't have conversations about fitness with an England cricket team. It's just a non-negotiable for me. So that'll be my stance moving forward.
Oh, Harmy, music to your ears. That's exactly what you wanted her to say, wasn't it? We've been talking, we were treading delicately around the subject of fitness with Lizzie Ammon last week, and Charlotte Edwards has said there will be no soft shoe shuffle around this subject. It's a non-negotiable.
It should be a non-negotiable. When it's professional, it should be a non-negotiable. And it's great to see first of all, it's great to see Charlotte Edwards in charge of the England cricket team, such an icon of the game. And I understand when you listen to Charlotte, and I spoke to her a couple of times, when you listen to her and you talk about why she took the route and not, because Charlotte Edwards could have had this job at any point in the last sort of 5 or 6 years, because of what she's done in the game and who she is in the women's game, how successful she was, not only as a player, but as a captain. But she's gone on a different path to try and, one, learn about the game of coach in the coaching world. And two, I think there was needed to be a time where she was out of the team with the players coming out of the team that she played with, to then stamp her authority on players that she hadn't had any interaction with. And I think there's only a couple that are left there now. When it comes to the sort of professional stuff, that's why I think John Lewis was brought in. And John Lewis was brought in, I think, and I don't believe, I'm not one of these, chauvinistic, so-and-sos that believes it should be a man doing a man's job and a woman's doing a women's job. No, your best person to get you, I think, clarity of where you're going, understanding the game that you're in, and trying to progress the team best possible way. You could get aliens in for all I care, as long as they're doing the jobs. And I think what John Lewis would have given would be the transition between a professional game and the amateur game. And there's a lot of players, coming through the women's game who have been involved in the sort of amateurish side of the game, not being as professional, playing well before the 100, having to do a job and then coming to have the cricket. And I think John Lewis, being from a professional environment for the last sort of 20 odd years as a player and as a coach, I think the male element of that would put, I think, building blocks in place to make sure that when you come into the England cricket team, we run it professionally, and this is how it's done. Whether he was listened, I don't think so. Whether people were conforming to what John Lewis was trying to sort of put across to the women's team, that is always a delicate one. Like, you're talking about fitness, you're talking about people getting bigger, players getting bigger in size and stature. And I'm not just talking body, I'm talking ego, because all of a sudden money comes into it. Then you've done well in the 100. Everybody's talking about how good a player you are. John Lewis is going, hold on, your 2K time stuff, all your fitness stuff, your levels are going up. And as much as, yes, you're doing well, this is going to come back to bite you when the games become either longer, i.e. 50 over, and then the test match, or you come into pressure situations when you're tired. That's when you make mistakes. And then there's a confidence element comes to it. So I think all that was a little bit of a crisis that the women's game was going through in this country, because they had been given a hell of a lot. They've been given a huge amount of pats on the back because of the 100 being so much of a success. And I just wonder if quite a few of them took their eye off the ball, and then all of a sudden that has a detriment effect to individuals, confidence, stature, and then also their performance, because they go hand in hand. And I think that's what's happened leading into the 16-0, where Charlotte comes in now. She's had a bit of time to understand what England was going wrong. And I'm sure when she says fitness is not negotiable, it's not. In a professional world, you should be fit. It's like anything, when you play cricket, the one thing that should never, ever come into question is fielding, because everybody can work so hard on the fielding. If you're technically not good enough, or if the team that you're playing against is so superior with bat and ball, they should never outfield you. They should never out-energize you. And unfortunately, I think over the course of the last sort of 6 to 12 months under John Lewis, I think there were the fundamental problems with England, that the energy levels in the field and the sort of fitness levels that a lot of people had mentioned came home to roost in Australia. And I think now it sounds like Charlotte is going to start with, like Michael Vaughan did all them years ago when we came. You know, we went to Bangladesh, and I've never done as much fitness in a pre-tour Bangladesh. And he's like, if we've not got fitness levels like this, we can't be the best team in the world. And I'm sure that's what Charlotte's thinking right now, going into that England group and trying to make them better.
Well, they always say that loyalty and patriotism has a price like everything else. But I did do a little bit of amateur sleuthing, and I am fairly confident, and I'd say more than that, that at the very best, she's having her remuneration equaled by England. But I think she's taking a pay cut to take this job. And she's had 4 very good franchise gigs around the world, which she won't be able to do anymore, which gives her a lot of more time off as well. And I think, you know, that she is doing this because she is Charlotte Edwards, former England captain. I mean, as I said, you know, I'm sure she's being paid well, but I don't think the ECB been able to match her accumulated earnings on the franchise circuit.
No, but I think this is, like you said, this is Charlotte Edwards. This is her time, and this is, your country needs you. And I'm sure if you look at the men's game, there are times where great players will come. I would imagine someone like Owen Morgan's time might come, Jimmy Anderson's time might come, Stuart Broad's time might come further down the line, where there's a role pops up and they go for it because they feel as though they can have an influence on English cricket to make it better. And I think, having been beaten 16-0 in Australia, I'm sure Charlotte Edwards, with everything she's gone through as an England player and captain, it's like having duty. And there are times where you just feel as though it's my duty to go and try and help out, especially if you're in that field. If you're not in the field, if she hadn't done any coaching and she had been in the commentary box for the last 10 years, talking about these players, then it's different. But when you're in coaching and you're going around the world and you're doing the franchise stuff, and this is your country and you have been such an iconic figure in it, maybe there's a time where you go, right, it's my time. It's my time to stand up and pay my dues to what's made me the person I am, which is obviously an England cricketer. And fingers crossed she does that, and I'm sure she'll do it very, very well. And we wish her all the best.
Okay, moving on to other stories. Poor old Ollie Stone. How many times can he keep going through the rehab and bouncing back? And every time he has bounced back, you've thought he's got back to his best. I mean, it's just such a struggle for him. He's now been ruled out for 14 weeks with knee surgery. He'll miss the home internationals. And we can only wish him the very best. I mean, Harmy, rehab is a lonely, lonely place. There's only so long that people can stay with you, and they'll set you up and go, right, do 5 lots of 10 of those, and then take that, and then go and do this and go and do that, and then they clear off, and it's just you.
It's you, and that's it. We had Yeah, you've got a little sample on social media of me, Huggy and Simon Jones talking to each other at Lords a few weeks ago. And Simon was talking about Mark Wood, and Simon said, you get used to it. You get used to being by yourself. And unfortunately, Si went through a lot of it. Mark's going through it, and Ollie's been through, I think, both of them put together. This is a lad who, time after time after time, doesn't come back to get to first class cricket. He comes back to get to international cricket, and that's the frustrating bit. You could understand it if he kept getting injured, if he got injured and he kept coming back to get to first class standard, up to speed and ready to go in first class cricket. But he pushes himself to a point and gets himself bowling wise to a point where he's on the verge of playing international cricket. That's how good a cricketer he is, and that's how hard he works. And unfortunately, his body just doesn't want to allow it. And there will come a point, like it did to Simon Jones, like it will to Mark Wood, and unfortunately it will to Ollie Stone in the near future, where that one more is just a bridge too far. And he's now going to miss the summer, probably from an international point of view. And can you take somebody with that injury track record to Australia and sort of hang your hat and say, we're going to build a group around Ollie Stone? And I think that is something, unfortunately, where I think England selectors might be thinking, you can't trust that as much as good as he is. So first and foremost, get him back on the field, back into the summer and see where he's at. But you do feel for him, because again, I keep saying it, we have got some good lads, and he is one of the very, very best.
Okay, just two more stories before we move on to the final word. Rob Walter has stepped down as South Africa's white ball coach. His family still live in New Zealand. He's been commuting, if that's the right word, between New Zealand and South Africa, or wherever South Africa play. He's had 2 years in the job. He's the first South African coach to lead them to a World Cup final, the T20 final, as well as the World Cup semi-final. He was heavily criticised for his transformation record by administrators. And by the by, Gary Stead, who's been New Zealand's head coach in all formats since 2018, 7 years in the job, has announced that he would only consider reapplying for his job in June, when his contract is up, if it was test coach only. So you don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to put two and two together there. I think Rob Walter might be heading back to New Zealand, where he is held in the highest possible esteem. So maybe a thought or two on that, as well as the news that Craig Brathwaite has stepped down as West Indies Test captain. Surely the greatest Test specialist in the world, or I should say most exclusive Test match specialist. And you're not going to see Craig Brathwaite playing any other form of the game. And Rovman Powell has also stepped down as T20 captain. So shuffling of the coaching and captaincy deck chairs there.
Yeah, the shambles carries on for the West Indies, doesn't it? I mean, yeah, Craig Brathwaite, Dean Elgar, they go down as the modern day greats of only one format, and unfortunately, it's the format that doesn't pay a great deal. And what a player Brathwaite's been for the West Indies. He's held them together for such a long time. So it'll be interesting to see where he resurfaces. Probably in English cricket, I would have thought, down the line. Rovman Powell did a really good job at Test in T20 cricket, and I'm not sure where that is, whether that's a falling out, which is, it often happens, week upon week in the West Indies cricket. And yeah, you're right. It doesn't take Sherlock Holmes to work out that Gary Stead is probably going to either not have a job come June, and Rob Walters is either going to take over the whole lot, or just the white ball stuff. It'd be interesting to see if they go that, because Gary Stead is well regarded there, and I think he is well respected by the players. So it might work that they do separate jobs, but from that point of view, financially, it probably doesn't work for either. It might work for Gary Stead as he's heading towards retirement, but I'm not sure Rob Walters will want to split the job with the amount of the less cricket that New Zealand play from a financial point of view, unless he's allowed to go and work in the franchise world as well. So I think watch the space on that one, but it wouldn't surprise me come July that Rob Walters is either the white ball or the entire New Zealand new head coach. So, and again, he did a brilliant job with South Africa. So I think he deserves the pats on the back that he's been getting, and it'll be interesting to see what role he gets in New Zealand cricket when it comes up in what probably will be July or August.
It's that time. We're down to our last 2 minutes and on to the final word, and we're going to stay in New Zealand for the first item. Neil Wagner. We talked last week, Harmy, about Peter Siddle taking a wicket to win a game for Victoria with his last ball in first-class cricket. Neil Wagner bowed out of the Plunket Shield with match figures of 8 for 86 to help Northern Districts win the Shield for the first time since 2012. He was so emotional afterwards, having tried with Otago and now getting across the line, winning the Shield, the Plunket Shield for the first time. It's a competition which is obviously still very dear to the hearts of New Zealand players, even if they grew up in Pretoria. But it's not the end of the road for him, because he's going to Durham for more cricket.
Yeah, he's coming to Durham for the back end of it'll be the last part of his career, and the back end of the season. It's a brilliant signing for Durham. He gave everything. I think he enjoyed himself last time he was here. He came at the right time. I think he came in June or July, so he got the best months to sort of sample English cricket. And he's been a champion cricketer for New Zealand and for whoever he's played for such a long time. It's always nice when you get the last wicket. As a bowler, you're finishing your career, and the emotion that you have when you know your career's finished now in that part of the world that has served you so well, like Sid's did, not long ago. And Neil Wagner, we had him on, didn't we, in one of the lunch fills in New Zealand? I think it was in Hamilton, and talking about his book and talking about his career, and he just seems so appreciative of all that's been given to him throughout his 20-year long career, that was such a lovely man who appreciates everything that he's had. He's had to work unbelievably hard for it. His story is breathtaking when it comes to not giving up. He's a beacon for any young cricketer that never ever give up. You might end up having to go to the other side of the world to fulfill your dream. And now he's going to go from the other side of the world to Durham, 10,000 miles away, to end his career. And hopefully by that end, I'd love to see him take the winning wicket to win Durham the championship. I must admit, Manners, that would be a fairy tale dream for all of us.
There's an extraordinary stat about Neil Wagner, and it shows his durability and the amount of cricket that he played. He's the leading Plunket Shield wicket taker, and he's also third on the all-time list of Test wicket takers for New Zealand. That is a prolific record. Absolutely phenomenal. And finally, Harmy, have we mentioned the IPL this week yet?
No.
Okay, well, I just mentioned it. And I hope I don't want to be unkind here, but Tilak Varma got retired out by Mumbai Indians. The game was lost. Mahela Jayawardene is the head coach now. He struggled along to 25 off 23 balls. And there's an over and a half to go. The game's gone. They've lost it. And not only was he retired out by Jayawardene, who beckoned with the big finger from the sideline, "You're off, mate. You're off." It's not like they replaced him with Kyron Pollard. Mitchell Santner was his replacement. And I shouldn't have laughed. I shouldn't have found it amusing. I shouldn't have done, but I did both.
Yeah, it was hilarious because I'm not sure why that would happen. Whether it's a message to Tilak Varma, who's still relatively young. Hold on, it's about team. It's not about individual. Stop taking all the deliveries up. You're not in great form. Either hit out or get out. This is how it's done. It's got to be about the team. Or he was trying to protect him and saying, "You're dying in a hole here. We might as well send Mitch Santner to dig an even bigger hole." But he played in the next game. He played yesterday, I think it was, wasn't it? So he got 50. He got 56 off 29 balls in the next game. So it didn't affect him too much. But he, when that finger came up, Mahela brought him in. It just shows you the cutthroat business of the IPL. It doesn't matter who you are, what you've done in the game. if you're chewing up the game and you're not doing your job properly, you're out of here. And unfortunately, or fortunately, from Steve Harmison's point of view, he got a chance to stay in the team for the next game, because you worry walking off. You're thinking, is this the last time I'm walking off in the IPL 2025? Possibly.
And the Mumbai Indians have now lost 4 out of 5.
Mm.
We'll have more on the IPL next week, maybe. You've been listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, along with former England fast bowler Steve Harmison. And we will be back at the same time next week to look back at round 2 of the County Championship and a lot more, maybe not that much IPL. But for now, this has been another edition of Following On.